In the vastness of the galaxy, where stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across an endless black canvas, there existed a space station unlike any other. Known as Nexus 1, it was a sprawling hub of interstellar diplomacy and commerce, where beings from countless worlds gathered to trade, negotiate, and occasionally glare at one another over bubbling cauldrons of questionable alien beverages. The station's grand hall, with its soaring ceilings and walls that shimmered like liquid crystal, served as the primary meeting point for dignitaries, merchants, and various cosmic misfits. At the center of this diplomatic circus sat Queen Xylora of the Zorathian Empire, a being whose presence commanded attention in ways that defied mere physical description. Her skin glimmered with an iridescent sheen that shifted between colors faster than the human eye could process, while her eyes, two pools of swirling galaxies, seemed to pierce through dimensions themselves. She wore garments woven from stardust and shadow, each thread humming with latent energy that made lesser beings instinctively take a step back. Her reputation preceded her, ruthless in negotiations, unyielding in her demands, and fiercely protective of her empire's interests. The Queen had arrived on Nexus 1 under circumstances shrouded in mystery, though whispers suggested she sought a crucial alliance to counterbalance rising threats within her quadrant. Yet despite her regal bearing and undeniable power, an invisible barrier seemed to surround her whenever she entered the Grand Hall. Other ambassadors and delegates would rearrange themselves subtly, creating a wide berth around her designated seating area, an unspoken testament to both fear and respect. The few who dared approach often retreated quickly, their faces pale or glowing, depending on their species, after brief encounters with her sharp tongue or even sharper wit. Among those who observed these dynamics was Captain Marcus Drake, a human security officer assigned to maintain order during diplomatic proceedings. Unlike many others on the station, Marcus possessed no preconceived notions about Queen Xylora beyond what his training manuals had drilled into him. Handle with extreme caution. To him, she wasn't just another powerful alien leader. She was a puzzle waiting to be solved, a challenge nestled within layers of protocol and prejudice. His curiosity only deepened when he noticed how isolation clung to her like a second skin, not out of choice but circumstance, a detail that tugged at something primal within him, something rooted in empathy rather than duty. As days turned into weeks, Marcus found himself increasingly drawn to the peculiar dance of power and loneliness surrounding the Zorathian Queen. He watched as she moved through corridors with measured grace, her entourage trailing behind like moons orbiting a distant planet. Each glance she cast toward empty seats beside her spoke volumes more than any official communique ever could. It was here, amidst the hum of artificial gravity and the murmur of 100 languages, that fate began weaving its intricate web, one strand connecting a rebellious alien monarch to an ordinary human guard whose courage might prove extraordinary. Without fully understanding why, Marcus felt compelled to bridge the gap between them, a notion so audacious it bordered on madness. But sometimes, madness is merely bravery wearing a different mask. On a particularly tense morning, when tensions between rival factions threatened to boil over, Marcus found himself stationed near Queen Xylora's usual spot in the Grand Hall. His heart thudded against his chest, not from fear, but from anticipation. Today felt different. The air crackled with possibilities instead of mere hostility. As delegates filed in, casting wary glances toward the Zorathian Queen, Marcus straightened his posture and took a deep breath. He didn't analyze his decision or weigh potential consequences. He simply acted. Stepping forward, Marcus approached the empty seat beside Queen Xylora without hesitation. The murmurs around him ceased instantly, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to stretch infinitely. Every pair of eyes in the room locked onto him as he lowered himself into the chair, his movements deliberate yet calm. For a moment, time froze. Even the ambient hum of the station systems seemed to dim, leaving only the sound of Marcus's steady breathing and the faint rustle of Queen Xylora's ethereal garments. The Queen herself remained still, her expression unreadable. Her galaxy-like eyes flickered with something Marcus couldn't quite place. Surprise? Curiosity? Perhaps even amusement? Whatever it was, it vanished almost immediately, replaced by her usual composed demeanor. Still, the tension in the room was palpable. Delegates exchanged shocked glances, some leaning closer to whisper furiously to their neighbors, while others leaned away, as if proximity to Marcus might somehow contaminate them. Captain Drake. Queen Xylora finally spoke, her voice smooth and melodic, carrying an undertone of steel. I see you have no regard for self-preservation. Marcus met her gaze squarely, his own brown eyes unwavering. Your Majesty, he replied evenly. Sometimes survival isn't about avoiding danger. It's about facing it head-on. A ripple of gasps echoed through the hall, followed by hushed mutterings. Some ambassadors looked scandalized, others intrigued, but none dared interrupt. Queen Xylora tilted her head slightly, studying him as one might study a particularly fascinating specimen under a microscope. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of her mouth twitched upward in what could almost pass for a smile. "You humans are peculiar creatures," she mused aloud, though her words carried enough volume for nearby listeners to catch. "Brave to the point of recklessness, yet oddly endearing." Marcus chuckled softly, surprising even himself. "We've been called worse things, Your Majesty." Her laughter joined his, light and musical, cutting through the oppressive atmosphere like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The effect was immediate and profound. Several delegates visibly relaxed, some even cracking hesitant smiles of their own. Others maintained their stiff postures, clearly disapproving of this unprecedented breach of protocol. But Marcus paid them no mind. Instead, he focused on the Queen, sensing an opportunity to transform awkwardness into connection. "So tell me, Captain," Xylora continued, leaning back slightly in her seat, "what drives a human man to sit beside a rebellious alien queen, as I believe your kind has dubbed me?" Marcus shrugged, allowing his natural charm to shine through. "Maybe I just wanted to see if all the rumors were true. Or maybe," he paused, choosing his next words carefully, "maybe I thought someone should treat you like a person instead of a title." Xylora raised an eyebrow, genuinely intrigued now. "And do you often play peacemaker among the stars, Captain Drake?" "When necessary," he admitted with a wry grin. "Though I must admit, this is my first time doing so with royalty." Her laugh rang out again, louder this time, drawing more attention from the surrounding crowd. A few beings started inching closer, eager to witness this unusual exchange. Others remained rooted in place, too stunned to move. Meanwhile, Marcus felt a strange warmth spreading through him. Not just from the Queen's unexpected camaraderie, but from the realization that he'd broken through her formidable defenses, however briefly. Their conversation flowed naturally after that, touching on topics ranging from interstellar politics to personal anecdotes. Queen Xylora proved surprisingly witty, her sharp intellect tempered by moments of genuine vulnerability that caught Marcus off guard. They spoke of her childhood on Zerathia Prime, where gravity pulled twice as hard as Earth's, making every jump feel like flying. In turn, Marcus shared stories of growing up in Chicago, navigating bustling streets and dreaming of adventures among the stars. Throughout it all, Marcus never lost sight of the fact that he was sitting beside one of the most powerful and feared beings in the galaxy. Yet somehow, the weight of that knowledge only heightened his awareness of the moment's significance. Here they were, two vastly different individuals finding common ground in a sea of differences, proving that barriers, even those seemingly insurmountable, could be bridged with nothing more than courage and sincerity. As their discussion wound down, Marcus glanced around the room, noting how the initial shock had given way to cautious curiosity. Several beings who had previously avoided Queen Xylora altogether now hovered nearby, emboldened by his example. Though none dared take the remaining empty seats beside her, their body language suggested a newfound willingness to engage. And perhaps, Marcus thought with quiet satisfaction, that was the real victory. Not just breaking the ice himself, but paving the way for others to follow. When Queen Xylora finally rose to leave, she paused momentarily, turning back to Marcus with an enigmatic smile. "Until next time, Captain Drake," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of promise. "May your courage continue to serve you well." With that, she swept out of the grand hall, her entourage trailing behind like shadows reclaiming their master. Marcus watched her go, feeling a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. He knew he'd crossed a line today, one that could either lead to extraordinary opportunities or catastrophic consequences. Either way, he realized with a grin, life aboard Nexus 1 would never be boring again. News of Marcus's bold act spread like wildfire through Nexus 1, igniting debates and discussions in every corridor and cantina. Some hailed him as a hero, crediting his courage with thawing the icy standoff between Queen Xylora and the rest of the diplomatic community. Others branded him a reckless fool, predicting dire repercussions for breaching such sacred protocols. Regardless of opinion, everyone agreed on one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. Queen Xylora herself became the subject of renewed fascination. Speculation ran rampant about her reaction to Marcus's audacity, Had she been amused? Offended? Secretly pleased? Observers noted subtle changes in her behavior following their encounter. During subsequent meetings, she appeared more engaged, occasionally directing pointed questions at delegates who had previously avoided her gaze. Her entourage whispered among themselves, marveling at how the human guard's actions seemed to have loosened some invisible constraint around their queen. For Marcus, life on the station transformed dramatically. Where once he blended seamlessly into the background of security operations, he now found himself constantly under scrutiny. Fellow guards regarded him with a mixture of admiration and envy, while higher-ranking officers alternated between congratulating him and warning him about potential fallout. Strangers stopped him in hallways, eager to share opinions or ask questions about his motivations. Most unsettling were the stares, some curious, others hostile, that followed him wherever he went. Yet despite the chaos swirling around him, Marcus remained remarkably unfazed. If anything, he embraced the attention, using it as an opportunity to foster better relations between species. When asked why he'd sat beside the queen, he responded with disarmingly simple honesty. Because no one else would. This straightforward answer resonated deeply with many, sparking conversations about fear, prejudice, and the courage needed to overcome both. His relationship with Queen Xylora evolved in unexpected ways. Far from punishing him for his impudence, she actively sought him out during gatherings, engaging him in lively debates or requesting updates on station security. Their interactions grew increasingly informal, marked by shared jokes and mutual respect. Other delegates began viewing Marcus as a sort of unofficial liaison to the Zorathian queen, approaching him when they needed advice on navigating her complex personality. However, not everyone appreciated this shift in dynamics. Certain factions viewed Marcus's growing influence with suspicion, interpreting it as a threat to established power structures. Rumors circulated about secret alliances and hidden agendas, fueled by those who resented seeing a lowly human guard rise so swiftly in prominence. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening to erupt at any moment. One evening, while patrolling near the station's observation deck, Marcus encountered Ambassador Tlorin of the Varnak Collective. The ambassador, known for his diplomatic cunning and translucent blue skin, blocked Marcus's path with a sly smile. "Captain Drake," Tlorin purred, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "Such an interesting development we've witnessed recently. Tell me, does your newfound friendship with Queen Xylora come with certain privileges?" Marcus stiffened, recognizing the thinly veiled accusation. "Ambassador," he replied coolly, "my duties remain unchanged. Anything beyond that is purely speculative." Tlorin chuckled darkly. "Speculation can be dangerous, Captain, especially when it involves matters of state. Be careful. You're playing a game far larger than you realize." The warning lingered long after Tlorin departed, casting a shadow over Marcus's thoughts. He couldn't shake the feeling that forces beyond his comprehension were aligning against him, driven by fears and ambitions he barely understood. Yet even amidst uncertainty, one truth stood firm. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Marcus faced them not alone, but alongside a queen who had begun to see him not just as a guard, but as a trusted ally. As days turned into weeks, Marcus discovered that his impulsive decision to sit beside Queen Xylora had set off a chain reaction of events far more complex than he'd anticipated. While some delegates warmed to the idea of engaging directly with the Zorathian queen, others dug their heels deeper into resistance, viewing Marcus's actions as a dangerous precedent. The station's delicate balance of power teetered precariously, with factions forming and reforming like shifting sands. During a particularly heated negotiation session, Marcus witnessed firsthand how deeply entrenched prejudices could sabotage progress. Representatives from the Caliph Consortium refused to acknowledge Queen Xylora's proposals, citing ancient grievances and territorial disputes. Their stubbornness infuriated Marcus, especially when he saw the flicker of frustration crossing Xylora's otherwise composed features. After the session adjourned, he approached her privately, unable to contain his indignation. "They're treating you unfairly," Marcus exclaimed, pacing back and forth in the secluded alcove where they often met. "You're offering reasonable solutions, yet they dismiss you outright because of past conflicts." Xylora sighed, leaning against the wall with an elegance that belied her inner turmoil. "History weighs heavily on us all, Marcus," she said quietly. "The Caliphs have legitimate concerns, whether we agree with their methods or not. We cannot erase centuries of mistrust overnight." "But you're trying," Marcus insisted, stopping mid-stride to face her. Isn't that worth something? She smiled faintly, touched by his passion. It is, Marcus, more than you know. But change requires patience, strategy, and sometimes sacrifices. Her words struck a chord within him, reminding Marcus of the countless times he'd seen similar dynamics play out back on Earth. Progress rarely came easily. It demanded persistence, compromise, and occasionally swallowing pride. Determined to help Xylora navigate these treacherous waters, Marcus threw himself into learning everything he could about interstellar diplomacy, devouring texts and seeking counsel from seasoned diplomats. His efforts did not go unnoticed. Gradually, other delegates began approaching him, not just to discuss Queen Xylora, but to seek insights into broader issues affecting Nexus 1. Marcus found himself mediating minor disputes, facilitating introductions between previously estranged parties, and even brokering small-scale agreements. Each success bolstered his confidence, reinforcing his belief that bridges could indeed be built across cultural divides. However, not all interactions were positive. Certain beings harbored deep-seated animosity toward humans, viewing them as upstarts encroaching upon territories rightfully belonging to older civilizations. These sentiments occasionally erupted into confrontations, forcing Marcus to defend both himself and Xylora against baseless accusations and thinly veiled threats. One such incident occurred late one night near the station's engineering bay. Marcus had accompanied Xylora on an inspection tour when they were cornered by a group of disgruntled technicians led by a burly Traxian named Gorlak. The Traxians, renowned for their brute strength and volatile tempers, had long resented Zorathian dominance in resource allocation. "You think you can waltz in here with your pet human and dictate terms?" Gorlak growled, his massive frame blocking their path. "Tell your queen to keep her nose out of our affairs." Marcus stepped forward protectively, positioning himself between Gorlak and Xylora. "Stand down," he ordered firmly, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. "This is neither the time nor place for aggression." Gorlak sneered, flexing muscles that rippled beneath his scaled skin. "Or what? You'll shoot me? Go ahead. See how quickly my crew dismantles your precious station." Tension crackled in the air as the two groups squared off. Just when it seemed violence was inevitable, Xylora intervened, her voice cutting through the hostility like a blade. "Enough!" she commanded, stepping forward until she stood shoulder to shoulder with Marcus. "Gorlak, your grievances are valid, but intimidation achieves nothing. Let us address your concerns through proper channels, not threats." To Marcus's astonishment, Gorlak hesitated, visibly struggling to maintain his belligerent stance. Finally, with a grunt of reluctant agreement, he signaled his team to stand down. As they dispersed, Marcus turned to Xylora, admiration shining in his eyes. "That was impressive," he admitted. "How did you do that?" She shrugged modestly. "Sometimes, acknowledging someone's pain diffuses their anger. It's a lesson I learned from watching you, actually." Her admission filled Marcus with a sense of fulfillment unlike any he'd experienced before. Together, they were proving that empathy and understanding could triumph over hatred and division, even in the vast, chaotic expanse of space. Back on Earth, news of Marcus's exploits reached headquarters via encrypted transmissions. Initial reactions ranged from incredulity to outright disbelief. How could a junior security officer stationed light years away become embroiled in galactic diplomacy? Commanders convened emergency meetings, poring over reports and debating appropriate responses. Some advocated recalling Marcus immediately, fearing his actions might jeopardize humanity's fragile standing among advanced civilizations. Others argued that his unique position presented unprecedented opportunities for influence and intelligence gathering. Ultimately, a compromise emerged. Marcus would remain on Nexus 1, but under close supervision. Regular updates were mandated, along with strict guidelines regarding engagement with alien leaders. Additionally, psychological evaluations were scheduled to assess his mental state and ensure he hadn't succumbed to star fever, a colloquial term for the disorienting effects of prolonged exposure to extraterrestrial environments. Receiving these directives, Marcus couldn't help but chuckle. Bureaucratic red tape stretched across galaxies just as effectively as it did terrestrial borders. Nonetheless, he complied dutifully, knowing compliance bought him time to continue fostering connections aboard the station. His superiors needn't worry. Marcus understood the stakes perfectly well. What they failed to grasp, however, was the transformative power of genuine relationships forged in the crucible of shared experiences. Meanwhile, public reaction on Earth diverged sharply. Media outlets seized upon Marcus's story, spinning tales of interstellar romance and daring heroics. Talk shows debated whether he represented humanity's brightest hope or darkest folly. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like #HumanHero and #SpaceDiplomat, reflecting society's divided sentiments. Schools incorporated his story into curricula, inspiring young minds to dream of careers beyond planetary confines. Yet amidst the hype, quieter voices spoke of deeper implications. Scholars mused about the evolving nature of leadership and cooperation in multicultural settings. Philosophers pondered whether Marcus's actions heralded a new era of interspecies solidarity or merely highlighted existing fractures. Artists captured his likeness in paintings and sculptures, immortalizing a moment when boundaries blurred and possibilities expanded. For Marcus, these reflections served as reminders of responsibility. With each passing day, he realized more acutely how interconnected lives truly were, regardless of origin or allegiance. Whether navigating political minefields alongside Queen Xylora or defusing tensions among rival factions, he carried Earth's hopes and fears on his shoulders. And though burdened by expectation, Marcus walked tall, guided by conviction that unity, however elusive, remained worth pursuing. Beneath the gleaming surfaces and bustling corridors of Nexus 1, unseen forces stirred, their intentions murky yet undeniably malevolent. Whispers of conspiracy threaded through the station's ventilation systems, carried by beings who preferred shadows to light. Among these figures lurked Dorvan, a former advisor to Queen Xylora, banished from her court under mysterious circumstances. His resentment festered like an untreated wound, poisoning his thoughts with visions of revenge. Dorvan's network spanned across species and allegiances, united by shared grievances against Zorathian supremacy. They communicated in encrypted frequencies, plotting moves calculated to destabilize Xylora's position without revealing their hands prematurely. Their primary target, however, wasn't the queen herself, but the human guard who had inexplicably gained her trust. Eliminating Marcus would sever a vital link in Xylora's diplomatic efforts, leaving her isolated and vulnerable once more. Unaware of the storm gathering around him, Marcus continued his routine patrols, occasionally pausing to chat with familiar faces or assist lost travelers. His interactions with Queen Xylora grew increasingly collaborative, their partnership blossoming into something resembling friendship. During one such meeting, held in a secluded garden module filled with bioluminescent plants, Xylora confided her growing unease about certain delegates' behaviors. "People are watching us too closely," she murmured, plucking a glowing leaf and examining its intricate patterns. "Some allies seem less enthusiastic lately, while old adversaries grow bolder. Something feels off." Marcus nodded, sharing her concerns. "I've noticed it too. Extra pairs of eyes following us. Sudden silences when we enter rooms. Could be paranoia, but paranoia can be prudent," Xylora finished, tossing the leaf aside. "Stay vigilant, Marcus. Trust your instincts, they've served you well thus far." Little did they know those instincts would soon face their greatest test. Later that evening, while escorting a delegation of Lemurian scholars to their quarters, Marcus detected a faint hum emanating from a maintenance hatch. Pausing mid-step, he scanned the area, his trained senses alert to anomalies. The scholars continued chattering obliviously, unaware of his distraction. Peering into the hatch, Marcus spotted movement, a flicker of scales vanishing into darkness. Without hesitation, he radioed for backup, then cautiously followed the trail. The narrow passage twisted and turned, leading deeper into the station's labyrinthine infrastructure. Dim emergency lights cast eerie shadows, playing tricks on his eyes. Yet Marcus pressed onward, driven by an unshakable certainty that danger lurked nearby. Suddenly, a figure lunged from the gloom. A Traxian technician, eyes wild with desperation. Before Marcus could react, the technician swung a heavy wrench, narrowly missing his head. Ducking instinctively, Marcus drew his sidearm, shouting warnings that echoed hollowly off metal walls. "Stand down," he commanded, adrenaline surging through his veins. "You're making a mistake," the Traxian snarled, advancing relentlessly. "Mistake? No, human, this is justice. Your interference threatens everything we've built." Backup arrived moments later, flooding the passage with light and reinforcements. Outnumbered, the Traxians surrendered. The Traxians' surrender marked the beginning of unraveling a much larger conspiracy. Under careful interrogation, led discreetly by Queen Xylora herself, the technician revealed fragments of Dorvan's plan. sabotage key systems aboard Nexus 1 to create chaos, discredit both Marcus and the Queen, and ultimately restore Zarathia's old guard to power. The implications were staggering, but Marcus and Xylora wasted no time in formulating a counter-strategy. Together, they convened an emergency council meeting, inviting representatives from every faction on Nexus 1. It was a risky move. Revealing too much could incite panic or expose vulnerabilities. Yet Marcus, ever the optimist, believed that transparency might foster unity rather than division. Standing beside Xylora as she addressed the assembly, he felt a surge of pride, not just for himself, but for the trust she placed in him. "Friends," Xylora began, her voice resonating with authority yet tempered by vulnerability. "We stand at a crossroads. Forces seek to divide us, exploiting fears and grievances to serve their own ends. But we are stronger together. Today, I ask you not as your queen, but as one who shares this fragile station with you, to join hands against those who would tear us apart." Her words struck a chord. Delegates exchanged wary glances, then hesitant nods. Slowly, alliances began forming, not based on historical rivalries, but on shared determination to protect Nexus 1. For the first time, Marcus saw glimpses of hope in eyes that had once regarded each other with suspicion. Even Ambassador Tlorin, whose earlier hostility had been so palpable, offered his support, albeit begrudgingly. With newfound cooperation came swift action. Security teams, led by Marcus, swept through the station, identifying compromised systems and neutralizing hidden threats. Technicians worked around the clock to fortify defenses, while diplomats negotiated temporary ceasefires among feuding factions. Queen Xylora personally oversaw operations, her leadership unwavering even in moments of doubt. Dorvan, however, remained elusive, a shadow slipping through cracks in the station's vast network. His followers dwindled as arrests mounted, but he continued orchestrating attacks from the shadows, striking at critical junctures to sow discord. Each setback only fueled Marcus's resolve. He knew that catching Dorvan wasn't just about stopping one man. It was about proving that fear and manipulation could be overcome by courage and collaboration. The final confrontation occurred in the station's core reactor chamber, a cavernous space humming with raw energy. Marcus had traced encrypted signals to this location, suspecting it served as Dorvan's last stronghold. Accompanied by a small team, including Xylora, who refused to stay behind, he entered cautiously, weapons drawn. Dorvan awaited them, perched atop a catwalk overlooking the pulsating reactor core. His expression was a mixture of triumph and despair, his once noble features now gaunt with obsession. "You think you've won?" he spat, his voice echoing eerily. "This station will burn before I let you destroy everything we built." Marcus stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Dorvan, it doesn't have to end like this. You were once loyal to Zarathia, to its people. What happened to that man?" For a moment, Dorvan hesitated, his gaze flickering toward Xylora. Pain flashed across his face, quickly masked by defiance. "She betrayed us all," he growled. "Her reforms weakened us, made us vulnerable." "No," Xylora interjected softly, stepping closer despite the danger. "My reforms sought to strengthen us, not through domination, but through unity. And look around you, Dorvan. Look what unity has achieved here today." Dorvan's composure faltered. Below him, monitors displayed scenes of delegates working side by side, species long divided now cooperating seamlessly. The image seemed to pierce something deep within him, shaking loose years of bitterness. Tears welled in his eyes as he sank to his knees, defeated not by force, but by truth. With Dorvan apprehended and his plot dismantled, Nexus 1 emerged stronger than ever. The crisis had forced its inhabitants to confront their prejudices and fears, forging bonds that transcended species and histories. Queen Xylora became a symbol of resilience and wisdom, her reputation bolstered by the loyalty she inspired, not through fear, but through genuine connection. As for Marcus, his role evolved beyond that of a security officer. Recognized officially as a diplomatic liaison, he acted as a bridge between humanity and the wider galaxy, advocating for understanding and cooperation. His relationship with Xylora deepened into a profound friendship, rooted in mutual respect and admiration. Together, they championed initiatives aimed at fostering peace and progress across star systems. One evening, as they stood together on the observation deck, gazing out at the infinite expanse of stars, Xylora turned to Marcus with a smile. "Do you remember when you first sat beside me? she asked, her tone light but tinged with nostalgia. How could I forget? Marcus replied, grinning. I thought I'd signed my own death warrant. She laughed, the sound musical and warm. Instead, you gave me, and everyone here, a gift. A reminder that courage can change worlds. Marcus shrugged modestly, though his heart swelled with pride. Just doing my job, Your Majesty. Call me Xylora, she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. After everything we've been through, titles feel unnecessary. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the cosmos and the warmth of newfound camaraderie, Marcus realized he'd found something far greater than adventure among the stars. He'd found purpose, a chance to make a difference not just for humanity, but for all beings daring enough to dream of a better future. And so, life aboard Nexus 1 continued, filled with challenges and triumphs alike. But amidst the uncertainty of the universe, one thing remained constant. The belief that even in the darkest corners of space, light could always be found, if one dared to seek it. With Dorvan's arrest, peace returned to Nexus 1, stronger than before. Queen Xylora's leadership inspired unity among species, proving collaboration was possible despite differences. Marcus became a celebrated figure, not just as a guard but as a symbol of courage and diplomacy. His bond with Xylora deepened into an unbreakable friendship built on trust and shared goals. Delegates who once avoided the Queen now sought her counsel, their fear replaced by admiration. The station thrived, its corridors alive with laughter and cooperation instead of tension. Marcus's actions reminded everyone that even small gestures, like sitting beside someone lonely, could spark monumental change. Back on Earth, Marcus's story inspired hope, showing humanity's potential to bridge divides across galaxies. He continued his role as a liaison, fostering alliances and spreading goodwill. Together, he and Xylora launched initiatives to aid struggling worlds, earning gratitude from countless beings. One evening, under a sky filled with stars, Xylora thanked Marcus for believing in her when no one else did. You've changed me, she said softly, and through you, I've learned we're all more alike than we think. Marcus smiled, feeling fulfilled in ways he never imagined. We still have work to do, he replied. But if we keep trying, there's nothing we can't achieve.